everybody. I wanted to take a few and go over on-trail nutrition and on-trail supplementation. As everyone knows, on trail, unless you have a lot of money and a lot of patience and time, food on trail is generally shit. You're going to be eating a lot of pasta sides, rice sides, Idahoan potatoes, ramen, etc., etc. And then in town, most of us are dying for pizza and burgers and other warm indulgences that may not be packed full of nutrition, and a good chunk of people try to pack out fruit and veg and do what they can there, but the overwhelming desire for calories tends to kind of dominate everything. And I want to talk a little bit about the nutrition itself, and that as well as stuff I have laid out in front of me that's to try to supplement, which in the particular situation we're in, doing a marathon a day, it becomes a lot more important. Whereas I work with a lot of athletes, and nutrition is a kind of supplementary side part of what I do. It's not, I've been trained in some nutrition, but I'm not a dietitian or anything like that, but I'm someone who is good at researching the science and figuring out what works for me, and having a better idea how the actual physiology of the nutrition works, instead of just, like men's magazine articles and junk like that. So what it comes down to is that an overall food strategy, I had a decent amount of weight to lose before we headed out on trail because, well, the best explanation I've been given from others is that I had a minor traumatic brain injury about 13, 14 years ago now, and that messed with my pituitary gland and changed my hormone function and made it incredibly hard to lose weight. And while I don't quite buy that being the case because I had a lot of the same issues beforehand, it kind of represents that I had a weight problem that took something severe to deal with. And to kind of cut it off early, calories in, calories out is reductive and horribly flawed. And yes, if you don't eat at all, you'll eventually lose weight. But for weight loss, that's not an appropriate response for healthy, sustainable weight loss. But without getting trapped into that, on-trail calories definitely matter, but for beforehand, I had a good amount of weight to lose. Over the last year and a half, I've dropped about 45 pounds on the scale and put on quite a bit more muscle as well, so I've lost, 50, 60 pounds of fat or something like that. And I did that through a ketogenic diet, which it tends to be a big, hot topic these days because so many people are still under the basis that high cholesterol and high fat will give you heart attacks and heart disease and kill you. That's patently false. There are some worries when someone does high carb and high fat, or if they have a congestive condition like heart failure, kidney failure, changing their electrolyte balance by changing their carb load can cause problems, but it just has to be monitored. I'm basically just trying to skirt over some issues so I don't have to talk over them in this, or talk through them in this video. But it just means I did a ketogenic diet for most of the last couple years, and I'm trying to keep up that adaptation before the trail, meaning during the week I eat pretty minimal carb, more than you'd want to do for keto to lose weight, but enough to keep the adaptations. And on the weekends I'm starting to get myself used to not just carbs, but the closer we get to the trail, shittier food like Arby's and Pizza Hut and Voodoo Donuts, stuff like that. But in controlled amounts, but as we get closer, just trying to show my body, look, you're going to have to eat this stuff and not die, because that's what we're going to have available. But by keeping that keto adaptation, it's going to help with just performance in general, and, well, hiker hunger is a big thing on trail that almost everyone gets, where, most of you watching this are going to be quite familiar with the notion of it, at least, that at a certain point you may eat 2 large pizzas and a whole bunch of sides and a couple beers, and an hour later you feel like you haven't eaten in 5 days. And so some of this is going to be, well, what we generally call a metabolic crisis. Your body is going, I'm out of carbs, all I've been eating is carbs and I'm out, and I don't want to eat my fat because that's my protective mechanism. So it really struggles. You get hypoglycemic, you get dizzy, lightheaded, stuff like that, especially with exertion. Even though you have tens or hundreds of thousands of fat calories on you, like, you shouldn't have a problem, but it's your brain assuming you've been somewhere in the modern world, or especially the West, you've not had to fast, you've not had to go in and out of what we call transient ketosis, your body having to deal with really effectively and efficiently without resisting you using your own fat for metabolism as its primary, where it might be getting some carbs here and there, but that's about it. And so what I'm looking to do is keep that keto adaptation, because we'll be out on trail and I'm not going to be having 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day I can eat, but that's what we'll be exerting depending on where we're at and what we're, how much we're doing that day. And so the keto adaptation, even though I'm not going to keep keto on trail, having that adaptation up to when we start will help my body be able to go, okay, we don't have enough calories, let's just jump into that ketogenic based metabolism, and we'll have a much easier time with it. So a big part of that hiker hunger is that metabolic conflict, that crisis, really. And so you'd still eventually get hiker hunger probably because your body's sitting there going, we've spent months not getting enough calories, we're starting to get worried. And so that may still be a thing. The other side of the hiker hunger is that you generate hunger. You get hunger hormones when you are lacking nutrients, when your body's going, okay, I'm not getting this range of vitamins or that nutrient, so I'm just going to put out a hunger because I can't tell the guy, oh, go have berries or something like that, or go have a cow liver. Just sit there being like, I need nutrients, so I'm just going to up hunger and hope that this human thing that I'm part of goes off and gets something with that nutrient in it. And because our diets are so heavily based on low nutrient dense carbs, really just pastas, rice, potatoes, which have almost no nutrients in them, like just they're nothing but calories, and off trail just don't eat those things except rarely. On trail, again, we don't have that much of a choice unless you're just flush with cash and time, which I'm certainly not. And so a big part of trying to deal with the hiker hunger and avoid it, as well as just make sure that we recover really well so that we can just keep going with good energy and good health the whole trail, is making sure we have a range of most important nutrients and things we're likely to need, and a few things that will just help us out. I've definitely talked to a few people who have really focused on good nutrition, avoiding ramen, still having the wide range of carbs, but making sure they had nutrients, especially in town and packing out, so that they'd have only a few days where they were missing nutrients, and mostly in the longest stretches where they had late, minimal, or in a few cases no hiker hunger the whole time, getting all the way to Canada. So that's something that, I expect to have hiker hunger, but I just want this to be the healthiest and best experience for my body and not have it have 6 months of malnutrition if I, assuming I can at least make a dent in it. So I've been doing keto before trail. I'm maximizing a lot of fat-soluble vitamins before we go, so they're as stocked up as possible. In towns, I'll definitely be trying to get some fresh food while still going for burgers and other junk like that, and then packing out like avocados, bag of spinach, fruit, anything I can kind of get in there. Fruit's less important than generally than a lot of veggies. They tend to be actually a lot less nutrient dense, but it's just getting some fresh something in me just for moral support, really. And then kind of scooting ahead is that post-trail nutrition is really, really important, because it's quite possible to actually become diabetic post-trail. So you've been doing this huge exercise to deal with the huge influx of sugar and refined carbs, and your body's been low calorie, so it realizes it's been starving, and anytime we decrease calories, to some degree your body goes, we seem to be lacking food, let's lower the metabolism, up our hunger, up our fat storage, and try to minimize this loss to make sure we get through the fall and winter that it assumes you're in, or just some kind of famine. And so when you've been going through months of incredible caloric deficits as well as nutritional deficits in all likelihood, and you've been working out enough to keep yourself from, say, gaining weight on the sugar and the carbs, which, without getting into the detail in this video, those signal your body to store fat. When spring and summer come around, you especially get fructose, but you get sugars, which your body goes, okay, it's spring and summer, there's lots of fruit, there's lots of just food all over because it's spring, as well as animals mating, etc. So we're just going to try to get fat so that when we hit the famines of, or at least the less plenty food of fall and winter, we have enough food And so sugar directly signals us to store fat, which is why it's so hard to lose any fat on sugar. We just happen to be doing 20 to 40 miles a day, so we manage. But as soon as you get off the trail, especially if you keep up anywhere like the same kind of diet and you're not doing those miles a day, your hormones have been geared towards be hungry, store fat, lower metabolism. And if you don't keep up a good amount of exercise and keep your food really clean, we see not just you gaining some pounds back, but we see a lot of thru-hikers that have a hard time getting off that thru-hiker diet mentality, putting on a lot of weight and contributing to a range of depression and just health issues and other stuff like that. It's not like this is 90% of people, but it's something to avoid. And after dealing with this arduous, intense process in your body, that you may be the fittest you've been in your life, but for internal health, missing those nutrients and just having that much of your body stripped away because of the caloric deficit is something to approach. And so really the simple side is avoid sugars, minimize beer and alcohol, keep your carbs as complex as possible, which means a sweet potato instead of a potato, minimize breads, minimize most rice, minimize pastas, as well as obviously desserts and the daily Snickers you might have become accustomed to. Focus on those nutrient-dense foods, which would be almost any vegetable, berries more than the rest of fruit that's so sugar-filled, going more for something like a sweet potato than French fries, which are just atrocious for you anyway. Not to say you can't have, things you enjoy here and there, it's just make sure you go for nutrient-dense foods, a lot of fresh food, and minimize carbs and sugar. So either way, getting out of the nutrition directly, there's a few things that I have laid out in front of me that are very core items for nutrition on trail, and some are just kind of some extras that I either picked up some of or just happen to have on hand because of life before the trail. And so the most simple side of it is multivitamins, which normally I'm not necessarily huge on for people because some of more minerals than vitamins, but if someone has like a tablet multivitamin mineral, some of those compete for each other, and so it doesn't actually help you absorb them. And if you don't actually have a deficit of those vitamins, it doesn't do any good for you. Sometimes it can be a little bit negative, but mostly it's just a waste. Especially if someone has a nutrient-filled diet, which, well, the honest fact is most people don't. So, but for us on trail, that is an automatic. I went with VitaFusion, doing some research and finding ones that actually have the amount of nutrients. Sorry, it's messing with the focus. That actually have the amount of nutrients it says have the nutrients we want, as well as aren't filled with food dyes and other stuff that's just abjectly bad for you, like most things do. And I don't respond well to multi-mineral vitamin tablets, so I can't take those. I often throw up immediately afterwards. And so I went for a gummy version, which is just going to be kind of fun anyway. So I like the brand just because they don't have crap in them. Though they do have a few grams of sugar, which for day-to-day life I wish they didn't. But for on trail, kind of irrelevant. And so I will immediately put a note on kind of my timing. So nutrient timing matters, and it doesn't have to be too complicated, but there's a big topic about anti-inflammatories and antioxidants. When we exercise and we have physical stresses, it creates inflammation and oxidative processes in response. And these aren't bad. It's telling your body, look, we have some healing to do, we've had some stress, you need to respond by healing it and growing. And while we're going to be doing so much hiking, it's not like you're not going to get better endurance and strength, but you don't want to fight it, you want to go with it. And so come nighttime, a lot of your cellular repair is going to be done while you're asleep. And so, well, I know some people, when they're more severe, they're going to be going for anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen or their turmeric, curcumin kind of stuff like that, and vitamins at night. And I personally don't want to do that because I don't want to dampen these oxidative inflammatory signals while I'm asleep when most of my repair and growth is going to be happening. So anything that's oxidative, or anti-inflammatory, I'm going to keep that in the morning to maybe help buffer the stresses of the day and still get that, but minimize the impact on my gains as well as just my recovery. as well as vitamin B12 messes with your melatonin production, which is one of your main sleep hormones, and so you don't want to take a multivitamin at night anyway, because it's just going to mess with your sleep and keep you awake. So either way, it means my multivitamins are a thing in the morning. With that, I kind of take, again, the rest of my spread that might be anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, which, because the fats on trail are going to be shit, I do go for fish oil. I'm, especially for cost, going to keep it conservative, just one of these a day, which does a lot by itself. I go with Dr. Tobias because, frankly, if you're taking Kirkland fish oil, throw it away immediately. It's rare I say that. Most of the time I'm like, well, I'll use it and then go for something better. But those are usually rancid and are actually going to cause more oxidation and health issues than they're ever going to help with. So I can give some places to look at for research and find good brands, like Labdoor is a decent place. If you want to get into the science, there's examine.com where you can look things up. But when it comes to brands, Labdoor, and it's another one I'm with, it's Consumer or something, I can't remember. It has a subscription that I had access to. But this one is good quality without being the most expensive, but it's 180 soft gels for $30. And the first time you buy it, they'll send you like a free extra, like 60 or 90 or some amount to go and give an honest review, which is really cool. So the first one's a bit more efficient. But that is a big one for people on trail, just because the fats we have are really shitty. Which on that topic means anytime you can get coconut oil in you on trail and avocados, do it. And my God, avoid ramen. I know that's heresy, but it is what it is. So moving on with kind of my morning spread, one of the things I love most in this whole grouping, and I wish I had the cash to maintain it all trail, but honestly I don't. It's not cheap, but it's a huge benefit where if someone asked me what's one thing I could have on trail or should have on trail, like this is almost the most tempting bit probably, which is Vega. It's probably the best brand of powdered nutrient stuff out there, because you're coming in with a dose of probiotics, most of a multi-mineral and vitamin. It's all made out of greens and fruit, so you get legitimate greens and fruit servings in a way that matters, and you also have 20 grams of protein per scoop, which, not that we necessarily have problems with that on trail, but you do have to focus on it, and I personally like the flavor. And so it's just mixed in with water, it's tops. It costs a bit, but this is like having a bit of salad and multivitamin all together with probiotics. And probiotics is another one of those big things that all of us should have, especially with all the crappy carbs we're taking in. But the brand I used that was inexpensive, which was just Whole Foods 365 brand, seems to no longer be available, and everything else that looks reasonable is really expensive, so I might not have any on trail. With that, Vega is something that we usually think of as just like for athletes and stuff like that. Creatine, incredibly inexpensive. Like this will see both of us through almost the whole PCT for $20. You take a 5-gram scoop, focusing, and the health benefits, like the research is, there's more research on this than any other supplement at all, ever. And so we're seeing increases of endurance as well as strength output, even helped with depression. We use this for people with traumatic brain injuries and concussions shortly afterwards, etc., etc., and it's just really inexpensive. So, and beginning to start the morning with everything else, just take a scoop of my Vega, my 5 grams of creatine, and just keep going. Like it's just, creatine is, it's just like a no-brainer because it's so inexpensive, and any brand will do. It doesn't matter as long as they don't have weird additives in there. So moving on, about once a year, if not, well, how to say, I go through cycles of certain nutrients and supplements that I wouldn't bother with year-round, but they have clinically backed success doing something highly effectively for your health. And they may not be issues that I have personally, but want to just do some little bit that doesn't cost me much and helps, say, that system of my body. So like if someone has a heart disease, I'm having to think of the name, resveratrol or resveratrol, I honestly always forget which one it is massively helpful for people with heart problems. I have no heart problems, but the dose to just help general cardiovascular health is really small, so once a year I may go through that. And another side of it, spirulina is a blue-green algae. I just get a bulk powder bag, and it has clinically backed surprising amounts of benefits for people with fatty liver disease, which I also don't have, but it helps a certain side of your liver's health in an actual legitimate, scientifically backed way. And I have a 1 pound bag or something like that that cost me about 20 bucks. I actually make my own capsules, so I just buy a bag of 1,000 capsules, put them in here, pour it on top, spread, put the caps on, and it makes it pretty inexpensive so that 1 pound I can have an effective dose for months, longer than the study actually checked with and had good results for. So all this long talking comes to, I went through that like 3-month period, and I think I'm coming up to the end of it, and I still have a decent amount of powder, and so I'm probably going to encapsulate that just as another form of nutrient-dense microgreens on trail. It's not going to do me any harm, and I have it. So it's not something I'm like, oh, do this on trail, but it wouldn't be bad, especially because it's inexpensive. $20 bag plus some capsules, and you could have like 5 grams of spirulina a day the entire trail. So, in a different direction, most of us are having really salty foods like chips and, well, everything we have is pretty much going to have salt in it. But especially as you go through your carbs, if you spend a long time in between eating, your body starts dumping electrolytes, and we're going to be sweating so much, especially for those of you who will be in the desert more in spring than I am in winter. I'm leaving mid-March, beginning in the spring, but it's still going to be not quite as toasty. Electrolytes become a lot more important, and so few really cheap and expensive things. We have these containers, which I'm just going to go to Winco bulk, but it's sea salt. I can get a pound of Himalayan sea salt for like $2 and put it in a big bag in our bounce boxes. Take these little packets of jeweler's bags and just keep one of them on me with sea salts, which have a little bit of trace minerals in it as well, but really just get you enough sodium no matter what you're eating. And similarly, potassium chloride, it's just basically a table salt using potassium instead of sodium. And so this is really pretty inexpensive. I got a pound for, I don't know, like $8 to $12 or something like that, and they last forever. So kind of same notion, and I can just take some of that, mix it with my water, mix it a little soft tasting. I don't mind it, my wife hates it. But so those are kind of some of our approaches for electrolytes, which relatedly, kind of jumping into the evening supplements, if any, we have ZMA. This is zinc magnesium. They're 2 minerals that most Americans are deficit in anyway, especially athletes, especially ridiculous athletes like thru hikers, because you're sweating so much and there's so many muscular contractions that you're using up all of these nutrients. And so this one's a really important one, and it's really inexpensive. Like technically, this is a month's supply in a bottle, because you're supposed to take 3. I probably won't take a full dose because, we'll have nuts and other seeds, things like that will add magnesium to our diet. But it also helps sleep by getting you to actually physically relax, and helps with that muscular recovery. So it's just, these are really inexpensive, so it's just a no-brainer to grab a few. Relatedly, melatonin. This particular one, Nature made as 200 grams of L-theanine as well, which is, it's a protein, a type of amino acid that relaxes your body. It's not an essential amino acid, but it's the stuff in green tea that makes you chill out a little bit. Plus 3 milligrams of melatonin. I found this one really effective. When I don't regularly use it, this just knocks me out. And so we'll be keeping a few of those on us for when we need them, but definitely not every night. So going to something that can kind of be an any time of the day thing, morning is probably better for the reasons I described earlier, is ashwagandha. One of the things that I wanted to have in our, like, say, supplement stack was something that we generally refer to as an adaptogen, which is something that helps buffer processes in your body, gets your body better at actually dealing with stress. Like, this has a bunch of benefits, from helping depression to helping recover from mental or physical stress, and that seems to kind of fit what we're going for. And it's effective at fairly small doses. Again, I bought a bag of the powder, I make my own capsules, makes it really inexpensive to cover the entire trail with it, because I'd only need 2 to 4 capsules depending on the dose I'm going for, and it's like a pound bag for like $20, so it's really cost effective for what it does. And adaptogens are just gold when we're doing this ongoing endurance situation, so that's what I highly suggest. I don't really have a brand preference. I just went for a company that seemed well reviewed, had no bad junk in their background or in their product, so most of it seems to be organic anyway. So moving on, there's something that I wish I could get a lot more of. There is a small cottage company called Keto Brick. Hard to see with the sheen from the light. But each one of these is 151 grams, and it is 1,000 calories. Literal 1,000 calories. And it's made out of really high quality fats and kind of superfood kind of things. It tastes bloody delicious, and they're actually quite small. It's that big. They're a little bit spendy though. I think they're like $12 a piece. But when you think about the calories you get out of them, the weight efficiency, the taste, I grabbed a few so that we could have them on trail in times that we just want a little bit of a treat and moral boost, and just a good way to pack some easy calories. And they may melt if you have them sitting in a post office in the desert or something like that, but they're basically shelf stable for at least a year. So these things are superb. They're hard to snatch up. When a new batch comes up, they go early, but look up Keto Brick. These are fantastic. I wish I could have one at every resupply, but again, I'm on a budget like most of you guys are. So that's the majority of the spread, where again, not all of these are necessities. I think creatine's an easy go because it's so inexpensive. A multivitamin is important, so is fish oil. The ZMA is inexpensive and does a lot for muscle recovery, for electrolytes as well. The ashwagandha is so inexpensive and does a lot for us in this context. And if you have the money, Veg is amazing. It's not cheap, applied on sale. But I do have a few other things that are going, in part because we just have them around. One is I still have a good amount of EGCG green tea capsules. Really good science on this. It's not going to be a life changer, but it's something that helps you deal with chronic inflammation and oxidation, and has some, it's kind of hard to scientifically say longevity benefits, but let's just kind of say some longevity benefits. And since we have a bunch of them, this would be part of my morning anti-inflammatory stack, which I'll also say it absorbs best with a little bit of fat, but no protein or carbs, which means ideally, like in the real world, what I do with this is I take it with my fish oil and just a little bit of water, maybe a little bit of pepper. I'll actually take them on the tongue because there's a chemical in the pepper, pepperin, that actually helps absorption. Your kidneys basically mark certain things, or I may be saying wrong with the kidneys, but your body marks certain things to just get out of the body, and the pepperin stops that and lets you absorb it better. So on trail, it's a little bit more tricky because you're going to want to get up, eat, even if you're eating on the go. But technically, you could have this in the middle of your day, between snacks or something like that, maybe with your fish oil for absorption, etc. And with that, make sure you have your multivitamin with some fat for absorption. Vitamins A, D, and K don't really absorb well without fat. So bringing that because I have it. It's inexpensive, but there's more effective things that do what it does for the trail. So that's just because I have it, but it is pretty low cost. Relatedly, we have some vitamin E. It is an effective anti-inflammatory, though there's better options. Like if you have money, astaxanthin is the most effective one I believe we've ever found. It does cost a little bit though, and I have some other options. So that's just getting brought to start with because we have it. And lastly, this is a little bit more specific, Ligoplex. This is chock full of nutrients and minerals, even has collagen protein and some other stuff like that, that helps with ligament and similar connective tissue like joint capsular repair, because not all of these nutrients are things we get well. And so my wife had a ligament injury sometime this last year, mid-year, and so to help recovery and make sure she had the nutrients for that, we grabbed some of this. It's not the cheapest stuff, but if you have need to help speed up ligament and similar tissue repair, this is a good one to go with. And so we're probably going to have it in a bounce box in case something happens, simply because we have some left and it happens. And very lastly, I probably will make some turmeric and pepper capsules because it's dirt cheap. It'd be better to have curcumin, which is the compound in turmeric that you're looking for, and the pepper has that pepperin that I mentioned that helps it absorb. So it is a really effective anti-inflammatory, which again would be more in the morning for me, or maybe midday, just to help combat and or buffer against the stresses physically without messing with the results that, the gains that come from the exercise. So that's really the full rundown that I wanted to go over, from a little bit of pre-trail, on-trail, post-trail, as well as the supplements here. It's kind of a lot of information, especially because I've been rambling for a half hour now. It's quite a bit to digest, take the pun as you will. But I'm definitely open to questions if anyone has any. Really, if someone's just looking for the most bang for their buck, my suggestion would be a good quality multivitamin, fish oil, and make sure you get your electrolytes with something like ZMA, especially because magnesium you'll get from nuts and seeds, but you're not going to get from salty foods. That won't have it, and that's something you're going to want. I highly recommend the ashwagandha. I'm not a thru hiker yet, but we do actually have good clinical evidence on how some of this stuff works, so it's not just me going, oh, well, it's anti-inflammatory, it'll do great. We actually have some good lab data on it. So I will leave you with that there. Again, any questions, let me know. This is probably the only nutrition video I'm going to do before the trail, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do more, because it's a topic I feel powerfully about, because nutrition in our country and our culture and the world, in fact, for the most part, is quite poor, and our knowledge about nutrition is based off marketing and bad science, and so it's something I talk about a lot. Semi-professionally, because it's just important. And when we're getting bad nutrition on trail and exerting ourselves harder and more consistently than professional athletes, it matters all the more. So that said, thanks for watching through this long nutritional rant, and I will see you in the next video.